Champions Cup Saturday games. Well, it's a bit of a mess at the moment, folks. It's a bit of a mess. French border restrictions means that 2 of the games have been postponed. That's Bath and La Rochelle and Sale and Clermont. The Sunday games are also affected. Of the 3 games that are going ahead, apparently, we'll have a look through the squads, some of the predictions, and you guys can let me know your thoughts. If any of the neighbours are going to do construction work at the moment, we're going to have to plough on because I'm half-time between Ulster and Northampton, so we're squeezing this video in between. Of the games that are going ahead, Harlequins and Cardiff. Cardiff, I was kind of expecting to see a bit of a stronger lineup, but apparently the guys who've only just come out of quarantine are pretty much not up for selection. Cardiff maybe have got priorities elsewhere. Obviously, health and safety is the thing. You can't just chuck guys into a match like this if they haven't had the appropriate prep time. So it's a very similar kind of team that played Toulouse last week and got pretty well beaten 39-7. That being said, in the scheme of things, that result was kind of a moral victory to Cardiff because given the gulf in experience and talent and whatnot, like reputation, Cardiff should have been on like a 60-point hiding kind of thing, but they kind of held their heads up really well. Quins are back from France with a narrow victory over Castres, so they'll be looking to kind of plough on against, as I mentioned, a less than full strength Cardiff side. They haven't made a heck of a lot of changes, Quins. They have got Joe Marchant in on the right wing. Kenningham switched flanks. Laude's up for switch flanks. Kenningham's up from the bench. Garcia Botta starts ahead of Marla. Marla's being rested. And Kerrid's up from the bench as well. But it's still Smith, it's still Kerr, it's still Levis as captain. Still Dombrandt, Hugh Jones and Esterhazen in the midfield. It's kind of steady as she goes for the most part. Lewis Liner is on the bench. He got a start last week. For Cardiff, Dan Fish moves to 10. That guy's... I don't know, man. Like, it's just quite a story to see that guy still playing, isn't it? So it's a bit of fun. Lilo's back in the squad. He's at 13. Josh Adams is able to then move to the wing. Winnett is there at fullback. Yardley's up from the bench to start at hooker. The main guys, Cabango is there on the left wing. He switches wings. He was one of the more impressive guys for me last week that I hadn't really seen play before, but actually managed to get a good crack at it. Holo's there in the midfield as well. You still got James Botham, who's moving from 8 to 7. You got Ellis Jenkins, you got Seb Davis, you got Thomas Williams. So there's still a bunch of experienced guys. Josh Adams, as I mentioned, and the midfielders, but it's still a relatively inexperienced Cardiff squad. Last week they missed 38 tackles, which is far and away more than any other team missed last week, but they still generated 5 clean breaks against Toulouse. And some teams didn't generate any clean breaks last week with their full-strength lineup. So, as I said, you do need to give these guys credit. I don't think Harlequins should go in expecting an absolute pushover because these guys have shown what the jersey means to them. Away from home will obviously be a bit of a different story, but we'll see. Harlequins, they had a pretty good disciplinary record against Castres last week in a game that narrow in terms of only being a 2-point win. You do need to keep on the right side of the referee. They conceded less than 10 penalties, which is always a good thing. They had 9, but they coughed up a bit of ball. 15 turnovers conceded is more than most last week as well. It is at the Stoop. It's on at 1 p.m. local time, which makes it a pretty horrendous time for me here in New Zealand, but we'll see how things go, assuming everything goes ahead. They're both in the UK, so that should be fine. But yeah, Harlequins by 8, according to the algorithm, and Harlequins by 33, according to the bookies. That's the difference between one that's looking at the lineups, which is the bookies, and one that's just looking at the teams, which is the algorithm. As I mentioned, Bath and La Rochelle is postponed. Sale and Clermont is postponed. But for Glasgow and Exeter, these are 2 of the most stable lineups I've seen kind of from week on week. There's very, very little in the way of changes. Batty starts ahead of Kebble for Glasgow, but otherwise I think it's pretty much the same lineup that played last week. Remember, they lost to La Rochelle away from home, but it was close. It was only a 7-point loss. So they were in that game away from home, which was a tough place to go against losing finalists from last season. So Turner Ferguson's there. Ali Price has, I think, just extended his contract with the Warriors, so he's still there at 9, and he is captain. Jack Dempsey, Daj, Tuipulotu and Johnson in the midfield. McKay at fullback. Same lineup as last week. And yeah, they were really good value. But speaking of good value, Exeter gave Montpellier, albeit a kind of second-string Montpellier side, a bit of a hiding last week, 42 points to 6. They scored a bunch of tries, especially big second-half performance from them. They have also named a pretty stable lineup. Josefa Scott is out of the 23. I haven't actually read if that's injury-related or performance because he struggled a wee bit last week. But Nixon gets a start ahead of him and Schickerling's in on the bench. But yeah, it's still the same team, man. Cowan-Dickey's captain. You've still got the two Simmons brothers. You got Jack Noel, who was really impressive, with his carries last week. You got Henry Slade in the midfield, kind of been steady as she goes. So yeah, it's basically last week's sides playing again with a slight tweak. Last week, stats-wise, Glasgow did miss 24 tackles against La Rochelle, which is a lot. That's pretty much second only to the amount that Cardiff missed against Toulouse. But their line-out, set-piece-wise, was really efficient, 10 from 11. And despite 24 missed tackles, they only conceded 20 points. So it wasn't catastrophic kind of missed tackles. Do you know what I mean? Often someone else is there to make the covering tackle. Exeter conceded a grand total of no line breaks against Montpellier, which speaks to their defensive shift. But that being said, they also were not able to pinch any Montpellier lineup. Or Montpellier had a 100% lineup, which Exeter did not. I think they missed a couple. So maybe that's an area where Glasgow can look to target them, because if the ball gets on the ground, Exeter will cause you all kinds of problems, especially in maul time and whatnot. But maybe Glasgow can look to disrupt in the air. We will have to wait and see. In terms of the predictions, Exeter by 5 according to the algorithm, and Exeter by 8 according to the bookies. That one could be one of the more interesting ones, I guess, because two pretty full-strength looking lineups, and again, both teams in the UK. That should be going ahead. I'm imagining 5:30 kickoff local time, and the last one, Munster against Castres. Now, Castres are a team that I don't get to see a heck of a lot. Not really familiar with many of their players. They seem to have made a bunch of changes from last week. Is this their stronger team or their weaker team? It's a lot of changes. Munster also fielded a less than full strength team last week, and they got a really good result, man. 35 points to 14 away from home against Wasps. Wasps were also without a lot of players, that has to be said. But Munster, I think, were without more. So I've seen kind of both ends of the spectrum. Heaps of credit being given to Munster. I was probably in that camp as well. And some people trying to say, well, it was Wasps' B team as well. But, I don't know, man. Some of those guys were on their professional debuts. So I do think you need to give those guys credit. They have brought some guys back, like Niall Scannell's back, John Ryan's back, John Klein is back, Jack O'Donoghue's there. Ben Healy, though, has got a bit of a task ahead of him because Joey Carberry suffered an injury in that game last week. But he's a guy who I think, from what limited amount I've seen of him, looks the business and will benefit from having these minutes. That's kind of, it's one of those tough ones, right, where you want your first guy to be playing, the likes of a Carberry, but also you need to find time to give the youngsters time to develop. So this is kind of a perfect opportunity for him. The backline otherwise for Munster is the same as that backline last week. It's pretty electric. You got Murray Earls, Dale Andy Farrell, Conway, and Patrick Campbell. Patrick Campbell was the only guy who last week I was like, everyone looks amazing except I don't really know who this guy is. And yet he also looked pretty amazing last week. So yeah, it could be a big one. I'm also looking forward to see how Jason Jenkins goes from the bench. It is a kind of a young-looking bench, though, for Munster. So maybe we will see some of the experienced guys go deep into the minutes. But if they get a big lead, they may substitute some of the guys early, again, to kind of grow that depth and talent. For Castres, like I mentioned, they've made a lot of changes. Like Umpotant is in at tight head. I don't know. I saw him on the French tour of Australia. So I know he's an international. Not got a lot of caps, but he's there. They've also made a change at loose head. They've got their captain back in the second row, Jacquet, who is captain. They've changed their halfback, so Cockett is on the bench. Peroni is the guy who starts. Udo Pujeta is still there at 10. They've also switched their right winger. But yeah, I don't know. Castres is a side that I kind of struggle with, so you guys will have to let me know if you're familiar with the top 14. Is this a weaker or stronger team than last week? I couldn't tell you. Honestly, couldn't tell you. But all I know is it's a pretty tough looking ask. And this is the only French team I think we've got in action at the moment. So, yeah, they'll be trying to fly the flag high, but going to Thomond Park seems like a bit of a tough ask. Castres last week, though, they did win 6 turnovers against Harlequins, which was among the most, but they also conceded 15 penalties, which is a lot. Remember, Harlequins didn't concede that many. Not quite half, but yeah. You can't be having that kind of disciplinary record. And Munster, 8 clean breaks against Wasps, which is a lot. Again, more than most. But they also missed 20 tackles. But maybe that kind of speaks to the side they had to play, which was kind of young. And both sides chucking it around a wee bit. That game last week, Wasps and Munster, was really quite an entertaining one. Interestingly, the bookies and the algorithm are pretty much on the same page here. 25 points for Munster, according to the algorithm, 24 by the bookies. So we'll kind of have to wait and see how things go. You guys let me know your thoughts. It is all sides who won up against sides who lost last week, but it is the sides who won last week that are kind of doubling down as the favourites for this week as well. Can you see any potential upsets? It seems like Glasgow at home to beat Exeter is the most likely one to go against what the predictions say. But you guys let me know what you think. If you know anything about Castres rugby team, do let me know, because I'm kind of struggling with them a wee bit. Munster's lineup is a little bit stronger than last week. Cardiff having to kind of back up 2 weeks in a row with a pretty inexperienced squad. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I will go back and enjoy the rest of Ulster and Northampton. Take care, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.